Hello, I'm Deborah Hamlin. With me today is Patsy Fulmer, a portrait artist who's recently moved into this area and graciously has allowed us to film her latest portrait of Emily McCardle. Patsy, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to go back with your background, where you went to school and got your degree.
I got a degree in art as an undergraduate at the University of Alabama and then an MFA from Memphis State University. And in 1987, when we moved to New York, I had the opportunity to go to the Art Students League and the National Academy, which was a really great experience, and I did that for a couple of years.
So you have quite an extensive background.
Yes.
I think your process is really interesting, and someone was commenting on the fact that in your portfolio, it's mostly women, as the French say, of a certain age. And there's a reason that you do that, isn't it?
Yes. Frankly, I have found in working with women and doing women of many ages that women who are middle-aged, who are 35, 40, and over, just make better portraits. They're at a stage in their lives, I think, this is my theory, where they can just project themselves better. They're more beautiful, and they're able to show that.
More self-confidence comes through, too.
That's right. Yeah, they're much more poised and self-confident.
We're going to show a couple of your portraits. You want to explain who the first one is?
The first portrait, I believe, is Dorothy Jordan. She started a camp for children with cancer in Georgia. She was in a show that I did in Atlanta, which was Outstanding Women of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And she also happens to be married to Hamilton Jordan, who was Jimmy Carter's chief of staff.
Mm-hmm. And the next portrait?
The next portrait is a portrait of Anne Oliver, who did the book Finishing Touches. She started a finishing school for girls called École d'Ingénierie. Mm-hmm. And she is a woman who is also older than 40. Just was able to project herself beautifully. She was very confident, and I think it turned out to be one of my best portraits.
And the woman that started the spinal clinic?
That's Alana Shepard. Again, she as well as Anne was in the show Outstanding Women of Atlanta, and she started a spinal clinic. I think it's the major spinal clinic in the Southeast, if not the only one, after her son was injured and she was unable to find anything that was close by.
Mm-hmm. And that portrait hangs at the clinic, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, in Atlanta.
And the final one we're going to show is Allie Klein, is that?
Yes, yes. I haven't done as many children's portraits, but this child is a very remarkable little boy and was certainly also very full of himself and felt good about having his portrait done. His mother is an international opera singer, Brenda Boozer, and his father is Robert Klein, who is a comedian. Mm-hmm. And I think this little boy also has a little bit of the comedian in himself as well. But children of this age can't really sit for long periods of time, and so I just set my easel up and while he was watching television and sort of moved around to capture the pose that I needed to.
It must be difficult doing children.
It is. It's definitely more difficult, yes, because they really are unable to sit for long periods of time.
Some adults can't either.
It's hard. It's very tiring, actually.
Okay, I want to go to your process. And I think it's interesting, you take, I think you told me 100 photographs?
Generally, if I take 100 photographs, there will be at least one or two that are very good and flattering, even among people who say they are not photogenic. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, I take 100 black and white photographs. I have a dark one, and I print those myself. Mm-hmm.
Why do you use black and white rather than color?
Black and white is much more easily I'm better able to see the gradations of black and white and grays and the values, more so than doing a color picture. So it's just easier for me.
Well, and then when you go into your next process, the composite, you do a very small sort of study.
Yes, I do a study first, and I'm able to use the photographs for that. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to arrive at the kind of composition that I want to do, because I not only want to do a portrait, I want to do a painting, and I want the painting to be beautiful. And so having all the pictures better enables me to do composition, and that's what I use the photographs for. And I do the first one in a study and have that approved by my client before I start on this very large painting.
And most of those are life-size, too. I'll point that out about your portraits.
Yes, they're mostly quite large, usually at least 4 feet one way.
So you definitely have to have a place to put them.
That's right. That's right. It helps.
Going on, following this process along, your next thing I think is very interesting when you do the acrylic, almost a monochromatic study in a black and white gradation.
Oh, the underpainting, yes. Well, that was one of the old master techniques, actually, and one that I learned at the National Academy, is that the first process is to do an underpainting, and that underpainting is in neutral tones, which is usually burnt sienna and white and maybe a little bit of black, yes.
It's not like I see on TV where they just walk up and start splashing color on the canvas.
That's a different technique, and one that I certainly admire, but it's not part of my process.
Okay, then going along, after you finish that monochromatic, is the person there at that point, or do they come in later?
At the very last stages of the underpainting, yes, because I can't really get all the information that I need from the photograph, and even then on the underpainting part of it, I do need for the sitter to come in if at all possible.
And then, of course, the next process, tell us about that.
Well, that's when I go into the oil technique, and it's a series of glazes and just painting in oil. And at this point, I really like to have the sitter there for a few hours each day, if at all possible. And then, again, I have the backup of all the pictures that I have taken. And so I paint after they have left as well, using the pictures and the memory of what they looked like when they were there.
And then finally, your final process after this?
The final process actually is the background, and I usually airbrush the background. The reason for that is that it just gives a kind of contrast that makes the painting more outstanding.
And we're going to see in the final portrait of Emily, a lot of times in a portrait you add a little, in Emily's thing, it's kind of a campy little thing with the heart.
Yes.
And the people who know Emily know why that is.
Right, yes. They're actually, just in terms of design, I needed to put something in the left-hand corner. And Emily has hearts all over her house. She was born on February the 14th, Valentine's Day. And I was hoping that people would not think that this was a sentimental, serious sort of idea, but that it would be camp. So I'm glad you said that. Yes, it's definitely that.
The people that know Emily know about the heart thing.
Yes, they do, because she has her heart jewelry, her heart earrings, and that's right.
And then, final process. I noticed one thing, that you changed, going from like the second stage and through on, even up to the final portrait. When she started out, she had on a shorter skirt, and then went to, you had a longer skirt.
It just didn't work. Sometimes that happens. In the study, it seemed to be okay, and yet when I got to the final portrait, it just didn't quite work, and so we changed it to a longer skirt.
Also, it makes it a little more formal.
It did, and that was one reason, but the other reason was just in terms of the composition, it just worked better.
And this whole process takes, you were telling me?
It takes about 6 weeks. If I worked 8 and 10 hours a day every single day, I could complete it in a month, but generally it's 6 to 8 weeks.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today and being gracious enough to let me look over your shoulder with the camera these last couple of weeks.
Well, it's been very nice. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Emily McCardle. After visiting the Louvre, the Prado, and most recently the Art Institute in Chicago, where one of my brothers studied art, I never dreamed that I would have my portrait painted. I met Pat Fulmer a year ago through a mutual friend, and we've become very close friends and discovered we were both from Memphis, which is a thriving art community. This past year, Patsy and I kept talking about painting my portrait, and having studied her portfolio of women, I decided that this would be the year I would have it done. It's been the most educational and thrilling experience. My husband Larry and I are very happy with the results.